Alright, so we're coming into the final battle of the series. Izuku versus Shigaraki is like finally starting now. For the last couple episodes, they've like been holding each other in place because I guess the rest of the plot needed to progress enough for them to actually start fighting because they're just way too powerful at this point. And I say that in like a good way. The authors of like the popular series usually wind up making the villain way too powerful and the protagonist not strong enough to the point of where they randomly just get strong enough out of nowhere at the end and they solve all the problems with, you know, whatever plot convenience or the power of friendship or whatever have you. You know what I'm talking about. There's multiple series that do this. I've read them all. But with My Hero, everything totally makes sense as to why these two characters are as powerful as they are, especially Izuku. Horikoshi actually kind of did the reverse of what a lot of shonen battle manga authors do. He made Izuku a little too powerful towards the end of the series and had to nerf him because of that. Because unfortunately, we only really see Izuku at the apex of his power pretty much one time in the series. It's in the previous season when he's fighting against Shigaraki / All For One mind amalgamation. I guess he's more All For One at that point, if anything, but it showed us that Izuku could easily just kill him at any point. Looking back on it, I guess he has to nerf him the way that he does in this episode, you know, with the recoil of gear shift and his reluctance to actually kill Shigaraki, because that would just, you know, easily solve everything here if he just, you know, did that. I mean, there's two instances in this episode where he cuts off Shigaraki's fingers from trying to stop him from touching him, and then he cuts off his hand later on. He could easily just take his head off too if he really wanted to, and everything would be solved at that point. And we even see the vestiges telling him like, hey, Izuku, it's okay to kill this guy. He's, you know, beyond saving at this point. Even Nana, Shigaraki's grandmother, is like, hey, just kill this guy, okay? It's okay. But Izuku is like, nah, I can't do that. There's still that prying boy inside of him or whatever, which represents the Tenko aspect of Shigaraki. Because Shigaraki is inherently innocent. It's not like he was All For One, you know, born a psychopath and could just continue that path his entire life to be the demon lord. Shigaraki, or should I say Tenko, he was a good kid. He actually kind of wanted to be a hero like his grandmother Nana, but he's just a victim of circumstance because he was Nana's grandson, which I think we'll get more into that in the next 2 or 3 episodes maybe, because that full backstory hasn't been fleshed out yet. But we still do get to see some really cool aspects of Izuku using his full power, I suppose, because he's still able to use gear shift to an extent. He still can use Fajin, and with the black whip, he uses all that together in a pretty cool attack, but it ultimately doesn't matter because Shigaraki winds up taking danger sense from him. This is the very first time we see in the series that All For One is able to take One For All, or at least an aspect of it, because Shigaraki does momentarily touch Izuku, and that goes into that sequence where he cuts off his fingers, but he touched him just enough to be able to take one of the factors of the overall quirk factor of One For All, which was danger sense. And it's actually conveyed in a pretty cool sequence where Shinomori himself, you know, the vestige of him still has like the quirk, which is funny. Like all of the vestiges inside of One For All, like the force ghosts that talk to Izuku, they all in a way still have like their quirks that they can activate. And Shinomori has danger sense, and he realizes that the hand of doom is coming, and he sacrifices himself by like pushing the other vestiges out of the way, and he just lets himself get taken. Pretty cool, to be honest. And this, of course, is because of All For One's big giant master plan that blew up in his face, just like everything else that he does, both figuratively and literally, as we saw in the previous episode. All For One himself, for some reason, didn't have enough hatred or something. He didn't have enough emotion because I guess he's a psychopath, and because of that, he couldn't bypass the failsafe of One For All when he would try to take it from the users. As we saw in the previous episode, it would just knock him out of there like a firewall or something. Hey, but real quick, guys, can we get this video to 1,500 likes? All you have to do is just, you know, move your thumb over, hit the like button. If you could do that, I really appreciate it. Thank you. And him and Yujiko, one way or another, figured out that, hey, if we like abduct a kid and then raise him to be a hatred psychopath, then eventually he can be strong enough to take One For All. But then we'll also have to like take over his body at some point too, because, you know, I can't just have him being the demon lord. I want to be the demon lord. And now we see that the theory that they had is true. Shigaraki is strong enough both mentally and physically to take One For All from Izuku. However, Izuku is still fast enough to evade it completely, so that's why just one factor of it was taken. And as it's also pointed out in this episode, One For All isn't dependent on the individual factors inside of it. It's more so dependent on the actual One For All quirk itself, which is Yoichi's original quirk, which is just like a nerfed version of All For One. Like, he only has the ability to give quirks and not take them because, I don't know, he didn't get enough nutrients as a kid or whatever. And then when All For One, like, forcibly gave him a power stockpiler quirk, the two quirk factors fused together and created One For All. And that's essentially what One For All is. It's not really the other quirks that come with it. That's kind of just a byproduct of the quirk singularity, I suppose. And that's another thing that we're seeing in this episode, is the quirk singularity happening in real time. Yujiko's theory that as time goes on, quirks will keep getting stronger and stronger through, hereditary means or whatever. And it'll get to the point of where quirks are so strong they'll essentially like end humanity or just the earth altogether. But that would take many generations, for the quirks to keep getting stronger and stronger. But as we see with the way that One For All works, through 100 years or so, it was passed on from user to user to user. So it was just skipping, going through generations, the organic way. And on top of the way that All Might had farmed the power to make it way stronger than anything it had ever been before, once it eventually got to Izuku, it mutated into the ability of using the previous user's quirk factors as well. And All For One, on the opposite end of the spectrum, was like scientifically augmented by Yujiko and All For One to be as powerful as it is. The All For One quirk, it's never stated if there's like a capacity to how many quirks he can take, but there is a capacity to how strong All For One himself is and how much his body can maintain the quirk factor itself once it gets strong enough. So that's another reason why they needed Shigaraki. Not only to be a hatred vessel strong enough to bypass the mental firewall or whatever of One For All, but also to augment his body to be strong enough to contain the insane power of All For One. And then on top of that, with the Decay quirk, we're seeing that he's just, he could destroy the world. I mean, he says that he could destroy Japan in like a week, which I think he could probably destroy it even sooner than that, but I guess Horikoshi figured out the math. So we just have these two gods of the quirk singularity fighting in this episode, and it's pretty cool to see. Sorry about that. I feel like I'm rambling. I just love this aspect of My Hero Academia, and I haven't really talked about it in a year, so it's kind of just coming out, I guess. What was I talking about? Tenko? Yeah, so Izuku is trying to get to the Tenko aspect of Shigaraki. And Star and Stripes Vestige points out that, hey, it's still there despite what Shigaraki is saying about it being dissolved into him. Shigaraki says it's like a smoldering aspect of her residually being inside of him, because in the previous season, when they took Star and Stripe's quirk, New Order, Star and Stripe made like one last command on it to where it would rebel against all other quirks inside of All For One. And somehow she's able to like communicate with All Might and the vestiges inside of One For All at the same time. There's just some kind of quirkery magic going on here. But this ultimately leads to the vestiges thinking like, okay, well, if there is still that aspect of Tenko in there, that mind wound that can't be healed by regeneration, then let's just go with what Izuku wants to do. We're not going to kill him, or at least directly kill him. Let's attack that mind wound. And we can do that by transferring ourselves to Shigaraki. Like, willingly let Izuku give the quirk factors to Shigaraki, because then they can like blast through into his mind wound, and then that'll hurt him. I mean, that's, it is what it is. But Kudo's plan of just transferring Gear Shift himself to Shigaraki is really smart, because as we see, Izuku is being affected by the recoil aspect of it. Like, if you use Gear Shift, yes, it's incredible and it makes you pretty much God, but only for a limited amount of time, and then you have like that recoil aspect of it where you can't really do anything. And if you get rid of that quirk, then the recoil doesn't affect you anymore. Which, okay, sure. I mean, your body still had to deal with all that stress, but I guess it's fine. But if you transfer the quirk to Shigaraki while it's still in recoil mode, he himself, in theory, will feel the recoil and he won't be able to move, which, like I said, totally smart, makes sense. So coming into the final sequence of this episode, Izuku does like this new crazy mode where I guess he's like fully manipulating Black Whip to like make him almost villain-like. weak, because that's what Shigaraki alludes to. And this is just keeping him together, because he's not going to be able to move otherwise. Like, he's using Black Whip as like a full body brace here. And we see in his hand, like, the quirk factor of Gear Shift shining. So this is how he's going to, like, transfer it to Shigaraki forcibly. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this episode. Another fantastic one. They're really crushing it with the final season here. I've been loving it. Let me know what you thought about it in the comments, guys. And if you liked the video, please give it a like and please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.